The following is a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network.
And welcome in. This is Eric DeRo along with Darren Archer. Today, you are watching On Deck with DeRo and Arch. This is a show where we kind of feature Missouri sports athletics or Missouri athletics on the college level, NAIA, junior college, Division I, Division II, you name it, we try to cover it. We love doing this, and so thanks for joining us. Darren, I'm going to start with a few tidbits, I guess, from the broader sports, more national. This is an interesting fact to me. Tonight, we're doing this show on Monday, October 28th. Tonight, in the professional sense, there will be Major League Baseball, an NFL football game, an NBA basketball game, and a national hockey match. So those things don't, I was trying to think about that. I don't think those two things collide very often, or those four things collide very often. So just an interesting night in the professional sports world, lots to keep up with there. So very cool.
I can tell you this. I can tell you this. I'm going to have it on split screen for at least two of those four sports. So
absolutely,
I am prepared for split screen watching tonight.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on the World Series here in just a little bit, but man, most people love to hate the Yankees and the Dodgers around here, it seems. But I tell you what, it's really fun baseball for me to watch and entertaining. I'm going to touch on some World Series stories here in just a little bit, so stay tuned for that, Darren. Missouri State football. We're going to visit at length about them later in the show. I did see where they've picked up some non-conference games in the future, one of which is Missouri State football is going to go to Auburn in 2027. And they've also got a game scheduled with USC somewhere in that time frame as well. So MSU, up in the ante, so to speak, on their competition with that. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great move in every aspect. They are making that jump from the FCS into the FBS, if you will, and that higher Division I level. And I think it's a great move financially for their program. Let's face it, it's a payday for them, and it helps boost their money and their budget overall, which will allow them to up their recruiting, equipment, different things like that they can put into their program. And I think it's a win-win regardless. You hope that you don't travel all that way and get a bunch of people hurt. But, the one thing is everybody pretty well knows the score could get out of hand. So anything on top of that is gravy. You go there and you play against somebody and hang with them for a while. And it's a great recruiting tool. You tell these kids, hey, we're traveling out to the West Coast and going to open up with USC next year. It's a great recruiting tool, and financially it's very good, and I like it.
Yeah. And obviously at a lesser level, but you and I coaching our own teams, I think we both always had sort of the philosophy that it doesn't hurt you to play up, especially early in the season, and maybe take one on the chin. If your kids have the right sort of mental approach and can handle that, there's more good that comes out of that than bad typically. So I think that's exciting for Missouri State. I'm with you. I think that's a great move for them. Switching gears, I referenced the World Series a little bit ago. Freddie Freeman and the walk-off grand slam. I just don't know, man, there's just not many moments as big as a walk-off grand slam in the World Series. Just an incredible moment for baseball.
First time it's ever been done, believe it or not. Walk-off grand slam. And you think about some of the great series that there have been, World Series that there have been, throughout the history. And that's the first grand slam walk-off in the history of the game. And, you mentioned it earlier, in this part of the United States, there's not a whole lot of Yankees or Dodgers fans, but it kind of has that nostalgic feel to it. And I'll tell you, when he did that, the first thing that came to mind was Kirk Gibson in his home run. Both of them were hurt,
Right.
Freddie Freeman's dealing with a really bad ankle injury right now. And I think both of them occurred within 5 minutes of each other, same date. And I think the count maybe was the same or within a pitch of each. I mean, just the correlation between the two was spooky. And it was really neat. He's one of the good guys in baseball.
For sure.
Regardless of who he's playing for, I'm going to be a Freddie Freeman fan. And it was neat to see him have that moment. And, hopefully that is preview of things yet to come and the remainder of this series. Yankees are up, or I'm sorry, the Dodgers are up 2-0, but they have to travel across the nation and play in a rabid Yankee Stadium. I really love this time of year.
Yeah. And you don't know that you did this, but you just set me up for my next comments I've got here. You mentioned famous World Series home runs. So I did a little digging today, and a couple that I'm going to reference here is Reggie Jackson's 3 home runs in a game in the 1977 World Series. All of those were on the first pitch that he saw in that at-bat, which is just, I don't know, as a baseball guy, that's really interesting to me that he would get, on the third time, you would think that first pitch wouldn't be close. But apparently he hit that third one 450 feet off of Charlie Huff in the 8th inning of that game. So the ball was the size of a watermelon, apparently, for Reggie that day.
Well, and what's funny, back in those days, hey, that fourth time up, of course, he walked his first time up, right?
Right. Yes.
And then hit home runs the next 2 times. Hey, back in those days, he probably should have had some chin music.
Yeah, that is
we
surprising.
Probably should have had one high and tight and let him think about it a little bit. But it's amazing.
The other World Series home run I'm going to reference, this is near and dear to me. I'm a huge Cincinnati Reds fan, so viewers out there, yes, it's okay to feel sorry for me and extend your condolences to me. It's been a rough road. Darren is a Cubs fan, so we both are examples of futility when it comes to our baseball fandom. So anyway, the home run I'm going to reference is Carlton Fisk's home run in the 12th inning in Game 6, 1975 World Series, where most people have seen this, where he's literally waving his hands out of the batter's box to try to keep the ball fair. Some interesting notes from that World Series and those teams. They were playing the Reds. The Reds, by the way, went on to win Game 7. Let's just put that out there. I read this today, Darren. I don't know if this is true, but we're going to go with it. In those days, apparently the cameramen were sort of instructed or coached to follow the flight of the ball. So Fisk hits the pitch, and the cameraman, in theory, is supposed to follow the flight of the ball. Well, apparently, games at Fenway Park, apparently there is a rat down at the feet of the cameraman at the time of Carlton Fisk's home run. And so rather than following the flight of the ball like he was supposed to, he just kept the camera on Fisk. And from there on, that was sort of the beginning of the camera staying with the hitter longer. So, Darren, I'm not sure if that's true or not. It makes for good storytelling.
Yeah, I don't think you can make that up. I mean, there's got to be some truth to that. That's incredible.
So, yeah. And hey, sports fans, I'm giving that to you for free. I'm not even charging you for that little bit of information. Another thing, and then we'll move on to some Missouri sports here. Louis Tiant, a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, he held out of spring training. Okay, this is 1975. He was making $70,000, or he was due to make $70,000 for that season, for the 75 season, and felt that he was underpaid. And the Red Sox came back and gave him $90,000. And he reported to spring training in the spring of 1975 for his $90,000 salary. So that just tells you how much things have changed through the years.
Oh my. Yeah, that would not work today, would it?
No, it wouldn't. $20,000 bump. That's nothing.
Some guys are making over that a plate appearance.
Yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, well, let's move on. Let's move on to some Missouri sports, college sports information. We're going to start with some volleyball and soccer. Maybe even throw in some cross country and some things like that. We've referenced Washington University before, but I wanted to take a little time and just mention what they're doing in St. Louis at Washington University. Their soccer team is 16-0-1 on the year. The volleyball team is somewhere around 23-4, I believe. They won 2 more this week in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Football program's 5-2. So just lots of good things going on at Washington University. And you probably know them a little better than I do. This is probably no surprise to you, or nothing new for Washington University in terms of their pedigree.
Yeah, historically, they've always had very good athletics across the board. Fall, winter, spring, all of their sports are high level. Their conference is high level. They play some well-known Division III universities and colleges, and it's really no surprise. You mentioned WashU's women's soccer program. I think they have been atop the polls from start to this date. They've been number 1 in the nation, and it's just incredible what they're doing, continue to do up in St. Louis, and I would expect more this winter with their men and women's basketball teams, and then on even into spring.
For sure, and they're definitely worth watching and keeping up with. And one of the goals of this show, we said it time and time again, but it's to sort of bring light to some programs and teams that consistently have done really good things. And so congrats to them. And if you don't follow Washington University, you might check them out. They represent the state of Missouri really, really well. Evangel volleyball, women's volleyball Evangel, they moved to 20-4 this week. They got 2 conference wins in the KCAC. And they are currently 7-2, I believe, in the conference. So volleyball at Evangel, they're playing really well.
Yeah, and what's crazy is I'm looking at the national rankings right now. They're not even receiving votes, which I think, well, if they can continue to pick up wins in conference, that's probably going to change. I think a part of that is that there's the state of Missouri is just so heavily represented in at the NAIA level. If I would say that if they continue their ways, they're going to sneak into that top 25 national ranking for too long.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that 20-4 record is deserving of some consideration, at least in that regard. You mentioned some other teams that kind of figure into the national scene. Central Methodist women's volleyball, 23-5. They went 3-0 this week. and they are 12-2 in the Heart of America Conference. So they too are playing well.
Yeah, ranked number 21 in the nation, and they are beginning to wrap up or toward the last third of conference play, and a lot of that's very important across the board for everybody, because you're starting to set yourself up for the conference tournaments and those automatic bids into the NAI national tournaments. So a lot of jockeying going on, and this is the point in time where you've got to win the ones you're supposed to, especially at home, and then keep picking people off on the road, and hopefully get that high seed to heading into conference tournament time.
For sure. Switching gears here to soccer, I'm going to reference Missouri Valley Soccer. We've kind of been keeping up with them a little bit this year, off and on, with good reason. Their men come in at 12-1-3, and their women are 13-3-1. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, their women went 10-0 in conference and won the conference outright. So men and women's soccer at Missouri Valley, good things happening there.
Absolutely. Their men moved into the top 5 in national rankings. They're number 5 in the nation. And then on the women's side, they are number 18. So well represented on both sides of the ledger, and look for big things from them in the upcoming weeks.
For sure. Before we head to break, I've touched on a few small college things there regarding some fall sports. Do you have anything else that you'd like to highlight for us, Darren, before we go to break?
Just in women's cross country, Mineral Area, and I think we've mentioned this before, Mineral Area is number 1 in the nation, nationally ranked in the NJCAA national rankings. And Jeffco, just south and west some of St. Louis, they're ranked number 2. So the top 2 cross-country teams in junior college at the D3 level are both here in Missouri.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good representation from our state for sure. So, well, that will do it for volleyball and soccer. When we come back, we are going to dive into college football, and there is a lot there to unpack, and some really good things, some really neat stories developing out of Missouri in terms of different football programs. So please stay tuned and check us out for some college football in Missouri, and just the things that are going on there. We're excited to bring that to you. And this is On Deck with DeRo and Arch. We'll be back after these messages. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, I'll have the avocado toast minus the avocado.
So, toast.
Yeah. Everything is so expensive these days.
Hey, Chevy gets it. That's why they're keeping prices down to earth, like on the most affordable EV in America. A super strong and capable Chevy truck.
And a high-tech Chevy SUV.
Why is Chevy making affordable vehicles connected by OnStar? It's so together we can do more.
We believe banking should make your life greater. It starts with affordable options to meet today's needs and tomorrow's dreams. From smart account options that fit your style to flexible loans for what comes next. It means convenient ways to access and manage your money whenever you need it and wherever you're headed. Most of all, it takes great support. Someone you can count on for trusted guidance and to be there for you every step of the way. Great options, great convenience, great support for life. Great Southern Bank, understanding what really matters.
And welcome back to the show. This is On Deck with DeRo and Arch. I am Eric DeRosset, and alongside of me today is Darren Archer. Thanks for joining us. If you missed segment 1 of our show, you need to go back and listen to the very beginning. We gave you some information there that you probably haven't heard before. And might sound like we even made it up. I'm not even sure how factual it is, but it's good information. So worth your time. If you missed segment 1, go back and check us out. We're moving into football in this segment, Missouri-based college football. We're going to start with Evangel. They had a big win against Friends University, ranked Friends in Wichita. Evangel come out on the plus side, and they won 24-21. great solid win for Evangel this week.
Absolutely. And that's one of those, kind of must wins in order to stay atop of the conference. And it doesn't get any easier for them, as we were talking off air. Why don't you let our listeners know what they have ahead of them?
Yeah, so they play McPherson, I believe, this week. McPherson is 7-1. They follow that up the following week, or the following game at least, Southwestern, who is also 7-1. So I'm not sure if there's a bye in between there or not, but you put undefeated Friends when Evangel played them, 7-1 McPherson, 7-1 Southwestern. That's a tough 3-game stretch for Evangel.
Yes, it is. And they do not have a bye. I think their bye week was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe. So they're playing week in and week out from here on out, and tough stretch, definitely. But I think this time of year, from what I understand, Evangel's fairly healthy. Obviously everybody this time of year is going to have the nicks and bruises and aches and pains, but
Right.
that not notwithstanding, they're in a good spot to put themselves in a position these next 2 weeks to kind of tuck that conference away and assure themselves a spot in the NAI national tournament.
Yeah. You would have to think some serious national ramifications if they would go 3-0 against those 3 schools in that 3-week period. So be anxious to watch them. At least one of those is a home game for Evangel. I can't remember on the other one, but at least one of those 2 are in Nixa where they play their home games. So good luck to Evangel as they proceed on. They're playing well, and no reason why they couldn't go ahead and win these next 2 if all things are right. So moving on to NCAA Division II football, just a few highlights there. Key McCullough from William Jewell broke the 1,000-yard mark for the season. William Jewell comes to Bolivar and beats SBU. So congratulations to Key on his success. Darren and I have visited with him previously and really enjoyed getting to know him a little bit. So shout out to Key and his success. Keep it going, man. We're following you. Central Missouri State, they're 5-3. They beat Washburn, I believe, this weekend. Just a little note about Central. In either this week or next, they play Pittsburgh State. Pittsburgh State is 7-1, and they just beat 9th-ranked Central Oklahoma this weekend. So that Central Pitt State matchup is always a good one, I feel like. But it sounds like Central's going to have to bring it against Pitt State whenever that matchup takes place.
Yeah, Pitt State has kind of positioned themselves at the top of the heap, so to speak, in a very, very good conference. And I would say they're the team to beat. But University of Central Missouri, I like their chances as good as anybody, because when they're clicking, they're an awfully tough team to beat.
They are. And we've said it before that, they always have skilled guys and size and they do it all and seem to do it really well. So you and I never count Central Missouri State out in any sport across the board. I mean, they are just talented, and they have that tradition, that culture there that always keeps them competitive. So that Central Missouri State Pitt State game should be a fun one down the road. Switching gears to Missouri State football, they are 6-2, winners of 6 straight. Just quite a run here for Missouri State. Exciting times there. Their quarterback, he's having a great season. He had another solid day the other day. I should say more than solid. He went 20 for 29, 275 yards and 3 touchdowns. So pretty good day's work for Mr. Clark there at Missouri State. I'm going to throw some schedule things at you here, Darren, then I'm going to let you expand on them a little bit. Obviously, as coaches, we never took games for granted, but Missouri State, their next 2 games, Southern Illinois comes in at 2-6. Murray State comes in at 1-7. Those are the next 2 games. The 2 games following that is number 1 ranked North Dakota State who is 8-1, with their lone loss coming to Colorado University, as in Deion Sanders, Colorado University. And that loss, that's the score of that loss was 31-26 to Colorado. So that's Missouri State's opponent 3 games from now. Then the game after that is South Dakota State, ranked 3rd in the nation. They are 6-2. Their 2 losses are to number 1 ranked North Dakota State and to Oklahoma State. So a lot to unpack there, Darren. That's the next 4 games in a nutshell from Missouri State. So I'm just going to throw that softball up to you and let you go with it.
Well, this gives you an idea how good the Missouri Valley Football Conference is. You mentioned North Dakota State, number 1 in the nation. South Dakota State, number 3 in the nation. South Dakota is number 5 in the nation. North Dakota is number 15 in the nation. Missouri State jumped up to number 17 this week, and Illinois State, who Missouri State has already played, comes in at number 19. Okay, there's 11 teams in that conference. 6 of them are nationally ranked in the top 20. You talk about murderer's row. My goodness, very, very talented from top to bottom with the Missouri Valley Football Conference.
Yeah, just tough sledding week in and week out, honestly, in that conference. We'd like to think that Missouri State, and I'm sure the coaches will do everything in their power to not let the players take the next 2 weeks for granted. But if they take care of business the next 2 weeks, man, those matchups coming up should be some really good ones, and sort of some gut check sort of games for Missouri State to see where they're at. So far, they've, in our estimation, have risen to the challenge, and no reason to think that they couldn't going forward. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we talked about, I didn't realize this, but Missouri State is going to make that leap from the FCS to the playoff system, FBS, and they are not eligible for postseason play this year, and I believe in 2025. From them making that transition, a lot of times when you make that transition, you have an interim period, and during that interim period, you are ineligible for any type of postseason play when you're making that jump up. So, I think it sets the table for them, though, to make that leap in going out and playing these type of programs, because they're going to see it week in and week out when it comes time, when they make that leap up to the next level. So happy for them. Coach Ryan Beard has done a great job. You mentioned they've got a lot of great skill players. Quarterback is pretty amazing and having a great year, and they just seem to be clicking on all cylinders.
Well, and the not being eligible for postseason might actually be sort of a good thing in terms of conference championship is really what they're playing for. And so they don't have the distractions of hey, where are we going to fall in a national sense? And are we going to, what are we going to do playoff wise? Like this is their championship right here to play for the conference championship. And so, I think that's marker board material in the locker room, right? Hey, win a conference championship. This is what we can do this year, and let's control it, and let's send a message when we fully make that conversion that we're here to compete. So, while it's disappointing that they can't potentially figure into the national playoff setting, might not be a bad thing for them just to go win a conference possibly. So we're excited to watch them. Again, I'm going to echo what you said. What a great run from Missouri State. It feels like the beginning of a consistent product up there. That's kind of the vibe I have. And so it feels like this is who they're becoming. So that's really exciting. You mentioned Coach Beard. And so just a shout out to him and his staff and just all the people that behind the scenes that go into success. It's not just, a head coach and 8 assistants or whatever it is. I mean, it's a training staff and recruiting people and all that. So congratulations to Missouri State, no matter where you factor into the success you're a part of. So congratulations. Southeast Missouri State, they continue to play well. Ranked, what are they ranked this week, Darren?
They are number 6.
Number 6, playing really, really well. They actually have a bye week this week. And then they play Lindenwood in 2 weeks. Lindenwood plays Tennessee Tech this weekend, and then they will match up with SEMO next week, Saturday, November the 9th, in what is billed as, let me get this right, somebody needs to either call in or tweet at us and tell us the story on this, but the game is referenced as the game ball brawl between SEMO and Lindenwood. Darren, you got anything there for me, or?
Absolutely nothing. I would assume it has something to do with game ball.
I would guess so. So, yeah, I don't know, but if somebody can fill us in on the game ball brawl, we'd be happy to speak to that the next time we talk about your game coming up on November the 9th. Moving forward, Mizzou football. Lots of opinions out there this week, and tough go at Alabama for all kinds of reasons. And Darren and I, we're Mizzou football fans. So all of this conversation comes out of just pulling for Mizzou. But it was a tough week. Lost their starting quarterback, had injured an ankle the previous week, came back, did some heroic things. Just the injury was too much to overcome for him this week. And as a result, they kind of lost their offensive confidence, and, Alabama shut them out 34-0. So I'm going to let you start with that, and then I'll chime in with some other thoughts that I have.
Yeah, I think the game plan going in was pretty good. They, for most of the first half, Mizzou was within a touchdown. It was a low scoring game, kind of an ugly game. And I thought, this is kind of what Mizzou needs. They just need to make this a slugfest and play it between the 20s and right. Hope for something to break and get on the board. But when Brady Cook went down again and took himself out of the game, reality kind of reared its ugly head. And right. we saw some of that prior to in the week, in the game against Auburn. It's unfortunate, but I think they also ran into a team that played with their hair on fire and probably got their mojo back a little bit. Alabama smelt blood and they started circling the water. I hats off to them for really putting together a great game from start to finish. And you could kind of tell that when the backup was picked off and they immediately go down and score, you could kind of start seeing momentum really jump on Alabama's back. And Mizzou didn't have an answer on either side of the football.
For sure. And a credit to Alabama, you referenced it, but they had been under their own criticism. The fan base was restless, and I mean, there was a lot. Even the coach's interviews during the week, you could tell he was a little tense and focused and those kinds of things. And so the pressure was on there. And so they responded well and took care of business. Going forward, and I think the question, and this is a fair question, I think, and I'm going to leave this to you. Is for Mizzou, is the A&M loss and the Alabama loss, is this just part of the growing to be a sort of a winning football conference in such a tough, a winning football team in such a tough football conference? Or is this indicative of some red flags or both, perhaps?
I think first and foremost, I think it's just I don't think everybody knew the SEC was going to be good this year, but I think it is a lot better than what people recognized coming in. I mean, when you've got teams like Vanderbilt, who for all intents and purposes should be a W on your schedule, and you don't want to say a weekend or a week off, but it should be a W in the win column, and it's just been from top to bottom, a very, very tough conference. And for Mizzou, they're assured going to a bowl. I think they played themselves out of the playoff system this weekend, unfortunately. But there's going to have to be a lot of things happen that the moons are going to have to be aligned right for them to work themselves back into an opportunity to be in that playoff system. First thing is they're going to have to run the table, and I just don't think they're healthy enough to right now. I would say through all of this, through the injuries, there may be some red flags just from the standpoint of depth, especially at the skill positions. You got some running backs hurt, you got a quarterback hurt, a few wide receivers that are hurt, and you had your starting quarterback playing on basically one leg last 2 weeks, and which raises the question. Prine, I think is the kid's name, Prine, the backup quarterback, and he's come in and done the best he can. But that's an awful lot of pressure to put on a young man when you're sitting behind Brady Cook all season and expecting the Iron Man to continue on, and all of a sudden you're thrown to the wolves against Auburn, and who has a very good defense, and obviously Alabama year in and year out is going to have a very tough defense too. So it makes you wonder: is their quarterback for next year, is he even on the roster right now? And those are some things where I think it starts on the offensive end. Mizzou had kind of a bend don't break type defense. And they broke Saturday. For all intents and purposes, they finally broke. And so I think the bye week is coming at a very good time. It doesn't get any easier. They've got this weekend off, and then they have to come back and face Oklahoma. But once again, Oklahoma's kind of in the same situation as Mizzou right now. They're struggling to find themselves, and I think they've had one win in conference.
Yeah,
I think something along the line. 1-4. So, and that's. But I think you're just seeing how good up and down the line the SEC is, and I think in a roundabout way, I haven't answered your question, but I'm not sure there is an answer right now.
Well, and certainly you mentioned Oklahoma. I think we could sort of ask the same question of them. As they've transitioned to the SEC, do they have their own red flags, or hey, is this just how it is in the SEC, and they've got to sort of find their way and work their way out of it? So again, not picking on anybody, it's just the conference is loaded, and so I think both of those schools, Oklahoma and Missouri, are sort of asking themselves, okay, hey, how do we get to that upper tier? You mentioned Vanderbilt. They're either week in and week out, they're either beating somebody or scaring the life out of somebody. I tell you what, they are fun to watch, and they leave it all out there. In SEC terms, that doesn't often get rewarded, just in the sense of it. There's just talent everywhere. And so, just because you have a great scheme or you have kids that play really hard, in the SEC, that may get you beat 30. So you've said it before. You got to have the Johnnies and Joes, but certainly Vanderbilt deserves credit for their showing in the SEC conference. And so
absolutely. And, hey, one thing, DeRo, that I want to kind of point out is that, hey, 2 years ago, if Mizzou is sitting at 6-2, period. Hey, I mean, holy cow, what's going on? This is great. And it was that way this time last year. Just the fact that we're having this conversation, I think says a lot about Coach Drinkwitz and that entire staff, the football program up there, how they have really changed the culture and changed the expectations, and have received respect from around the nation. It started with the tremendous year that they had last year, and then beating Ohio State in the bowl game, and kind of they have put themselves on the map. The difference is, I think, is that there's no secret about them now. The secret's out on Mizzou. They're a good football. They're a very good football program, and they're getting everybody's best shot. Hey, when you start off the season being talked about, getting in that first playoff format, you're going to get people shots because they're playing for that spot as well. So hopefully this bye week will allow them to, number one, get healed up. That's the biggest thing. Just get those injuries taken care of, and hopefully those guys all heal. And they've had a lot of injuries at the skill position, and that's awfully tough. And then just to flush that last game, and you got to move forward, man. It's
right.
Coach speak, but you have to flush it and move forward, and try to finish off the season as best you can.
Yeah, and this matchup with Oklahoma is big. I mean, it's big for both teams, and I mean, broken record here. I said that last week about Mizzou and Alabama, but I don't want to say Mizzou's trying to find himself. I think that's too strong, because they are a good football team. We both agree with that, but they're searching for that consistency, I think, a little bit. Oklahoma appears to be doing the same thing. And so it'll be a matchup. That's in Columbia. I think that helps a ton. I know it helps. Referencing Oklahoma, their final 3 games go a little something like this. You ready? Mizzou, Alabama, and LSU.
Holy cow.
So, kudos to Oklahoma. I mean, and
good luck with
that. And I'm not saying they're going to get beat. It's just, 3 weeks of that. It's just brutal. So, I'm going to touch on the national rankings before we get off here. But Oregon remains at number 1, and Miami actually moves into the top 5 ahead of Texas. So I'm going to give Brett Boo a little shout out here. Brett Boo is the athletic director at Stratford High School, and he is a huge Miami University fan. So, Brett, life is good right now for you. So hang in there. You're a little bit like Darren with the Cubs and me with the Reds. You've stuck with them thick and thin, and so you deserve to celebrate a little bit with that Miami University undefeated record. 2 more teams I'm going to mention. Going to get your reaction. Mentioned this team last week, the Indiana football Hoosiers, still undefeated. If they continue on, there would be a matchup on November the 23rd between Indiana and Ohio State. Since when has a football game between Indiana and Ohio State had national relevance?
Never. I can answer that pretty confidently. Never.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I thought, the party may be over this weekend when they played Washington. And man, if they didn't just, lay the wood to them. It's amazing. Fun to watch.
Yeah. The other team I'm going to reference, and this is just one of those feel goods. I think football fans across the nation always pull for them, but Army is 7-0. You talk about kids that do it the right way. Those West Point guys, 7-0 in football, nationally ranked. That's a great story. Probably a story that needs to be told more than it is.
Absolutely. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think both Army and Navy were nationally ranked this past week.
Yeah.
Now, Navy got pretty well blasted by Notre Dame.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's neat to see our armed service branches, making some noise on the football field, and God bless every single one of them for what they do for our nation.
Absolutely. A credit to them. You talk about a structured life. I can't imagine what a student athlete is like there. And those guys are just different. I mean, let's just be honest. Their willingness to be disciplined and, go to work essentially every day. Kudos to them. Hey, and those guys are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and just doing it the right way. So before we got off the air today, I wanted to mention those people that are worth a mention. So if I'm not mistaken, and I'll try to get more information on this, they too may have a matchup with Notre Dame in a couple of weeks.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I would imagine so. But hey, that I guess second week in December, when they're the only show in town.
Yeah.
The Army Navy game, that should be a dandy this year.
That's great.
That's going to make for some good football.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, it's been fun catching up on all of it nationally and close to home and everything in between. Great time to be a sports fan. It always is. And hey, we're even on the cusp of some basketball, college basketball. I'm seeing some exhibition scores and some opening games and some things like that. So, me personally, I always feel like the intersection of college football and college basketball, when those two things sort of intersect, in November and early December, man, that's a great time to be a college sports fan. So just lots and lots of good things to keep an eye on. So Darren, it's been fun. It's been fun visiting with you, and appreciate you hanging out with me today. And I hope our listeners have enjoyed it too. I'm going to let you give a shout out to our media and social media outputs, and you can sort of tell people where they can find more about us.
You bet. Hey, follow us on Twitter, also known as X. You can follow us at DeRo_on-deck and at Missouri_sports. And hey, if you have any ideas on stories, individual accomplishments, team accomplishments that maybe have passed us, let us know. Shoot us a text, shoot us a message, and be sure to follow us on YouTube, Facebook, SoundCloud, and you can also get every score for football and volleyball at MissouriSportsNetwork.com.
I was actually at a Bolivar High School football game a couple weeks ago, and my son's on the staff there, and just had a guy sort of randomly walk up to me and said, "Hey, I've been watching your show," and he had good things to say about us. And so if you are out there watching us or following us a little bit, be sure and let us know. We'd love to strike up sports conversations with you and just be available to kind of spread the word about anything sports-wise, college level in Missouri. So again, thanks for joining us. For Darren Archer, I am Eric DeRossit, and you have been watching On Deck with DeRo and Arch. We'll see you next week.
This has been a presentation of the Missouri Sports Network. Thank you for tuning in.